After leading France from the brink of defeat during the 100 Years' War, Joan of Arc was captured and put on trial for heresy, witchcraft, and violating divine law for cross-dressing by the English. After a trial in early 1431, she was found guilty of heresy and was sentenced to being burnt at the stake. Nevertheless, she became the greatest national hero in the eyes of her compatriots, and her achievements had a great impact on the later revival of French nationalism. Joan of Arc was probably born around 1412 in Domremy, northern France, during the 100 Years' War. She did not get formal education, but her mother sparked the young girl's interest in the church and its teachings. Meanwhile, the 100 Years' War between England and France, that began in 1337, entered a crucial phase due to disputes over who was rightful heir to the French throne. When King Henry V became King of England in 1413, he reclaimed the throne of France. He invaded France and won a decisive battle at Agincourt, where he defeated a much larger French army of about 25,000 with only about 6,000 soldiers. Eventually, the French gave in and King Charles VI named Henry as the heir to the throne. A treaty was signed which granted Henry regency for the insane French King Charles VI and ensured he would inherit the throne after Charles' death. However, in 1422, both Henry and Charles died within a couple of months of each other, leaving Henry's son king of both England and France. But supporters of Charles VI and his son saw this as an opportunity to reclaim the crown to a French monarch. Many of the people in southern France did not accept the English ruler. Consequently, the English started to invade southern France in 1428. At this point, most people believed that the little that remained of France would soon be gone. Only a miracle could save the country. That miracle turned out to be a 17-year-old peasant girl from the border region of France. At the age of 13, Joan of Arc began to have direct communication with saints, and that these saints had chosen her to be the savior of France. In May 1428, Joan's visions encouraged her to seek to meet the young Charles and ask for his permission to help him defeat the English. Although he initially refused Joan's request to meet Charles, Baudricourt eventually relented, and in 1429 Joan was escorted by several soldiers, embarked on an 11-day journey through enemy territory on horseback, dressed like a man, to meet Charles at Chinon. Unsure of who this peasant girl was, who claims that she can save France, Charles subjected Joan to a great deal of interrogation by both himself and prominent clergymen and members of his court. Eventually, Charles decided to provide Joan with an armor and a horse so that she could accompany an army to Orleans, the site of an English siege. After a series of battles in May 1429, the French took control of the English fortifications. Joan's reputation spread widely. She went on to lead her troops and Charles of Valois to Reims, where Charles was crowned as King Charles VII. All was well until King Charles ordered Joan to lead an army to the French town of Compiègne, which had recently come under attack by the Burgundians. Joan agreed, but as she was trying to defend the town, she was thrown off her horse and was taken captive by the Burgundians. The Burgundians sold her to the English, who saw her as a valuable propaganda tool, and Joan then was given to the church, who insisted on trying her as a heretic. She was charged with witchcraft, heresy, and violating divine law for dressing like a man, and, after a trial in early 1431, she was found guilty of heresy and sentenced to being burnt at the stake. At that time she was only 19 years old. The trial for heresy was politically motivated. British medievalist Beverly Boyd described Joan's trial as so unfair that the trial records were later used as evidence for her canonization in the 20th century. To distance himself from these serious allegations, the King of France never attempted to negotiate Joan's release. On May 30, 1431, Joan of Arc was taken to be burned at the stake. Witnesses described the scene of the execution, that she was tied to a high pillar at the Vieux Marche in Rouen, and she was allowed to ask two clergymen to hold a crucifix in front of her body as she was being burned. One English soldier took pity on the girl and handed her a hastily made wooden cross, moments before she was tied to the stake. She kissed it and put it into her bosom. After she died, the English raked back the coals to expose her charred body so that no one could claim she had escaped alive. They then burned the body twice more, to reduce it to ashes and prevent any collection of relics, and cast her remains into the Seine River. On May 16, 1920, she was canonized. She remains a national hero in France and a symbol of hope and perseverance for all.